We're now in a position to start our Pictures to Exe show, in this case of Skomer Island. This is the interface that you'll be presented with on opening up Pictures to Exe. Along the top we've got what's called the main menu bar, and you can see the sort of options that we've got in there. Below that we've got what's called the top toolbar, and there's a few useful tools under that. Here we have the file tree, and this just shows the drives on your computer containing the data. And on the right of that we've got the file list. So if we select on D drive, you can see these are the folders in D drive, C drive, these are the folders in C drive. To the right of that we've got the mini player, and this will play back music, videos, pictures, depending on what you've got selected in the different areas of the show. We have the slide list underneath here. This will be populated by the pictures that are going into our show. We've got the bottom toolbar containing project options, customize slide, objects and animation. And to the right of that we've got what's called a switcher between the slides and the timeline. So at the moment it's showing slides, which will be in here. Click on timeline and it changes the way it looks. You've also got the timeline for the audio files as well. And at the very bottom we've got what's called the status bar, and again that will be populated once we start the inserting images into the show. Under settings we've got preferences. You need to look at the Pictures to Exe user guide, from the company to see what all of these settings do. But basically just changes the way the interface and the way Pictures to Exe will work for you. Also down on the bottom left we've got the project options, and I'll go into that very shortly. But first of all we need to actually create a new project. So I'm going to go to File, New, and Project. I already had a project open, so I didn't want to save that one. So this is the new project, and it's going to be called Skomer Island, and the aspect ratio is going to be widescreen, 16:9 widescreen. Click OK. I need to save this now. We've created a new project, but we need to save it. So I'm going to go to File, Save As, tell it where to save the project to. And it's going to be D drive, Pictures to Exe shows, Skomer Island. I'm not going to put it into any of the subfolders. I'm going to put it into the Skomer Island there. You can see the file name. It's already populated with the Skomer Island project name, and it's got an extension of PTE, Pictures to Exe project. Save that, and that will be that's where our project is now being saved. So let's just go back to project options, because it's important to ensure we've got these defaults set before we start populating the show. You can see the under main we've got aspect ratio, which is what we set, 16:9, which is exactly what we want. We can change the slide default duration, so this will be applied to all the slides introduced into the show. Of course later on we can change individual slides to whatever we want. So it defaults to 5 seconds. I'm going to leave that as it is. Audio, we can introduce audio tracks into here, audio tracks, audio files. I'm going to leave that as it is because there is a simpler way of doing it than dragging it in like this. Control, again, you need to decide on what you want the interface to behave as for your own preferences. Screen. The background color, you can change the background color of the screen, which will appear in here when you're doing this slideshow. You can do it to whatever color you wish. I'm going to leave it to black. You won't get any effect on this particular show because the images will fill the entire screen. But if your images were only small, then it's important to set the background color. You can have a gradient, whatever, or you can actually have an image if you want to bring an image in. The virtual side, the size of the slide, 1920 by 1080. That is exactly what we want. Those are we've sized all the images to that size. Transitions. That's the basic transition. Dissolve, and you can change the duration of that. But again, for individual images, you can change it to whatever transition you want. Defaults and advanced. Okay. So for this particular purpose, I'm going to click OK. Everything's set up for how we want it. Now I want to create a show that blends seamlessly into the length of the music track that I've selected. So under here you can see I've saved what's called Albatross into my music folder. Okay, we can just check that is the file by selecting it and going to our little mini player and pressing play. Yeah, that's the Albatross track. Okay, now I can drag that whilst we're in timeline view. Can drag that into the timeline, and there it appears. We can click and drag along the timeline wherever we want. Well, I want it to start at the beginning, so just drag it to the left. We can see as we drag the timeline there, it goes for, well, 2 minutes 50 seconds. So that's the duration of this particular show. I'd like to just get rid of there's a bit of a gap at the beginning of that soundtrack, so I'm just going to right click on that and go to Customize Audio Clip. This brings up our project options, which we've seen this just a few seconds ago. If we click on that little icon there, that brings up this waveform and envelope tool, which is a very intuitive way of editing your soundtrack. I want to edit the beginning there, but it's very small, so I'm just going to drag this magnifier tool and then just go to the beginning of the slide like that. Right, so by dragging that little icon there, that defines when this piece of music is going to start. Now there it will be abruptly starting there. Just put the cursor there. Okay. It's not quite what we want. I want to drag it to about there. And then I want a gradual fade in of the music. So if we drag that to about there. So it gradually fades in. Okay. If we go to the end of the music, again, there's a little bit of a gap at the end. Well, we've got no music. I'm going to drag it to there. And of course, there is a nice natural fade out of that. So I'm going to say OK on that one. And when I click OK, you should see that this soundtrack actually moves to the left a little bit. So that, because the start has just changed a little bit. There it is. So our soundtrack is 2 minutes 50 long. Right, so to add images, click on pictures. We can drag them individually into the timeline. It's probably best to have it on slide view when you're dragging these images. Okay. If you don't want them, you can just click, shift click and delete. It doesn't delete them from your computer, it just deletes them from the timeline. If you want to add all of them, you can just select and Control D, and it will populate the entire show with those pictures. If we go along, just click to timeline again, we can see that we've got far too many pictures. It stops at 35 there, the music, and we've got about 66 images. So we've got far too many, so we need to weed out some of those. So I'm going to be covering that in the next tutorial.